Now, one of the areas in which I can imagine many investors have questions for, because I do too, and in a good way, is the actual contract that you have with each artisanal gold miner. Can you explain that process a little bit more? And can you also explain how do you choose one from the other when it comes to the miner?
Brandon, good question. Um, the novelty about how we're operating take all of his essence in basically the binding of the parties. How do we contract? How are we legally binded to the miners or the co-op that we're partnering with? So obviously, we select them carefully. We do due diligence. And so let's say at one point we agree that they need $1.5 million to execute their business plan until they're cash flow positive. So we don't just cut them a check of 1.5 million. So we will, in this instance, we will be basically be buying the equipment on their behalf, and then we will keep a lien and mortgage until they've delivered a portion of the gold. So it's a different way of contracting. Essentially, the core of our engagement into this, what we call partnership, is an advance purchase agreement that is inherent and part of the partnership agreement. So the advance purchase agreement works the same way as the farming industry has worked for decades. They also have advance purchase agreement. Industrials comes in and buy crops for sugar and coffee and banana for a few years ahead of time, and they provide money up front, and they get a rebate on the crop for the next few years. So everybody gains into this concept. So for the first time, we're porting this creative and fair trade way of contracting with the artisanal gold miners around the world. So essentially, we have this advance purchase agreement, and then we sign this to the amount that is the equivalent of the requirement for their business plan. So let's say this 1.5 million. So we buy for 1.5 million of gold upfront. So we send our mining engineers, the geologists. We buy the equipment. We train them on the equipment. At one point, they start extracting gold from the ground. So the first thing that needs to happen is they need to deliver the gold that we purchase in advance. We give them cash flow, obviously, to survive throughout this exercise and live well. But 6 months, 12 months after, they deliver the gold that we pre-purchased. From that point on, and for the lifetime of the mine, 20% of the productions will become the reward of GoldFinX to have funded and coached them and supervised them for the long run. So this basically is a very fair trade way of providing financing to a large segment of the gold mining industry, the artisanal gold miners. This not only is a fair trade, but it's a very sustainable way of contracting. So we don't provide them a loan, we don't take equity, so they remain totally independent. We are protected with the fact that we buy the equipment under their name, but we keep a lien on the equipment. Most of the asset purchase that we could attach lien, we do so. And that lien will be on until they delivered the equivalent of the advance purchase, meaning they literally have reimbursed the investment. Now, the beauty of this for us is all of this reward is also stored into a vault, and that becomes the protective element of our business concept, that using the digital currency or cryptocurrency. But that's probably a topic for another conversation. So essentially, the novelty of porting the contract farming advance purchase agreement concept to the artisanal gold miners and encapsulating this into a partnership agreement basically binds us to the partners, the co-op or the owner of the mine for the long run. Basically, we come in, let's say our example of 1.5 million, we're not going to spend 1.5 million in the first 3 months. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring equipment to test and validate the concentrations of the gold and then the location of the gold. Once we're satisfied that we have a sustainable concentration, we bring in larger piece of equipment to extract in a much more efficient and profitable way. And then we move the smaller equipment further away on the concessions. And then we will do these phases until it makes sense and until the concentration supports more powerful equipment in that sense. At the end of the day, this becomes a very conducive arrangement where there's all sorts of elements that are built in for risk mitigation into how we contract. And essentially, it provides us also the ability to be on site because we're supervising the extraction. Our responsibility starts as soon as the gold comes out of the ground. And then it becomes our responsibility through our supply chain management to bring this all the way up to the refinery. And then from the refinery, once it's purified, then we return a wire, money transfer, of 80% of that production back to the owners, the co-op or the owner of the mine. So we have built in this risk mitigation system in there that basically protects our investors, protects GoldFinX, but also take advantage of the flexibility of the system to allow the partners to benefit from waves of capitalizations or investment in such a way that carefully we advance, but we're tied into a long run, and everybody gains into this legal framework. So very innovative how we have put together all of these components, and to the great satisfaction of all of our partners so far, and certainly the large NGOs that we are working or explaining the concept, and they're offering their appreciation in the way that we've constructed this legal engagement with that community. And I think that we're in for the long run with this.